There are two of these animals left on Earth. Two. Not 200, not 2,000. Two northern white rhinos, both of them female, both standing in the same fenced grassland in central Kenya, at a place called Ol Pejeta Conservancy. Their names are Najin and Fatu. They are mother and daughter. And when they die, a species that walked Africa for millions of years is gone, the way the dodo is gone, the way the mammoth is gone. But that is not the end of this story. Because what scientists tried next, almost nobody believed could work. Rewind a few decades first, because you need to understand how complete the disaster was. There used to be thousands of northern white rhinos roaming across Central Africa, through the grasslands and woodlands of what is now Uganda, Chad, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the country called South Sudan. In the 1960s, some counts put their numbers above 2,000 animals in the wild. They were a real population, spread across a real range, doing what rhinos had done for ages. Then came the poachers. The horns were worth more than gold by weight, sold off into illegal markets for fake medicine and status carvings in distant cities. Gangs with rifles and machine guns followed the herds into the national parks of Central Africa, often through war zones where nobody could stop them. The killing was industrial, and it never really slowed down. And it worked. Within a single human lifetime, the wild population of northern white rhinos collapsed toward nothing. By the early 2000s, surveys of their last refuge in the Democratic Republic of Congo were coming back empty. The wild northern white rhino was declared gone. The only survivors on Earth were a tiny group held in captivity, and that group kept shrinking, down to a handful, then 5, then 4, then, in 2018, down to the last male. His name was Sudan. He had been brought from a zoo in the Czech Republic to Ol Pejeta Conservancy in Kenya years earlier, in the hope that African grassland might encourage the rhinos to breed naturally. It did not work. By the end of his life, Sudan was guarded around the clock by armed rangers, because even an old, dying rhino's horn made him a target for poachers. They cut his horn down to a stub to make him less valuable, and still they watched him every hour of every day. On the 19th of March, 2018, Sudan was put down at age 45. His body had failed him. Age-related infections had spread. His muscles could no longer hold his enormous frame upright, and the veterinary team at Ol Pejeta made the call to end his suffering. And with his last breath, the northern white rhino lost the one thing it could not replace. By guarding harder or fencing higher, it lost its future. The math now read 2 females, 0 males, and a clock running out on both of the survivors. Think about what the 2 survivors actually live like now. Najin and Fatu spend their days grazing on the open plains of Ol Pejeta Conservancy in Kenya, in a fenced sanctuary inside a larger sanctuary, and they are never alone. A team of armed rangers protects them every hour of every day and every night, because 2 animals worth this much to poachers cannot be left unguarded for a single minute. The most valuable rhinos on the planet are not valuable for their horn. They are valuable because there will never be any more of them. They are walking museum pieces that happen to still be breathing. That should have been the obituary. The last male is dead, the 2 survivors are female. The math is finished. Except the scientists at Ol Pejeta and a German-led research consortium called BioRescue refused to read it that way. They looked at 2 infertile females and a dead male, and they asked a question that sounds like science fiction. What if the species does not actually need its last male to be alive? Here is the part that changes everything. Years before Sudan died, veterinarians had collected and frozen his sperm. Not just his, the frozen sperm of several northern white rhino males, all of them now dead, sits in tanks of liquid nitrogen, biologically paused. The males are gone, their genetic material is not. So the plan took shape, and it is audacious. Take eggs from Fatu, the younger female, the one whose body can still produce them. Fertilize those eggs in a laboratory using the frozen sperm of the dead males. That is in vitro fertilization, IVF. The same basic idea used to help human couples conceive, except nobody had ever pulled it off in a rhino. Then take the resulting embryos and freeze them too, banking the next generation before it is even born. It sounds clean when you say it fast. It was anything but. Harvesting eggs from a rhino means sedating a creature the size of a small car, laying her on her side, and guiding a needle on a long, custom-built probe deep into the body, past the animal's massive intestines to reach the ovaries. One wrong move and you puncture a major artery, and the rhino bleeds out. The team built specialized tools that existed nowhere else on Earth, and they practiced the technique for years on southern white rhinos first, before they dared touch the last two northern white rhinos on the planet. There was no room for a learning mistake. There were only 2 patients left, and if you lost one, you lost half a species on the operating table. But it worked. Egg by egg, trip by trip, BioRescue began building embryos, and the count kept climbing. By the start of 2024, they had created 30 pure northern white rhino embryos. By the latest update, in August 2025, the number had grown to 38, each one a frozen blend of Fatu's eggs and a dead male's sperm. 38 chances at a species, sitting in nitrogen. So why isn't there a baby yet? Because of the cruelest catch in the whole story. Neither Najin nor Fatu can carry a pregnancy. Najin is too old and carries a tumor that makes pregnancy dangerous. And Fatu has a problem with the lining of her womb that means an embryo cannot take hold. The 2 animals who hold the entire genetic future of their kind physically cannot give birth to it. The embryos exist. The mothers to carry them do not, so the scientists turn to a cousin. The southern white rhino, the northern white's close relative, is still around in real numbers, tens of thousands strong across southern Africa. And here is the part worth holding on to, because it is the hopeful echo underneath this whole story. The southern white rhino was itself once thought finished. Late in the 1800s, it had been hunted down to a tiny remnant, perhaps fewer than 100 animals hiding in a single corner of South Africa. From that handful, careful protection brought the southern white rhino back to a population in the tens of thousands. A species, written off as doomed, became the most numerous rhino on Earth. That recovery is the reason there are now enough southern white rhino females to serve as surrogates at all. So the plan was to use those southern white rhino females as surrogates, as living incubators, carrying northern white rhino embryos to term across a species line. A rhino giving birth to a baby that is not quite her own kind. Nobody had done that either. So before risking a single precious northern white embryo, the team ran a test. They made an embryo from southern white rhino eggs and sperm, and on the 24th of September, 2023, they transferred it into a southern white rhino surrogate named Kura at Olpejeta. And it took, for the first time in history, a rhinoceros was pregnant from an embryo conceived in a laboratory and placed inside her. When the team checked, they found a healthy male embryo about 6 centimeters long, the size of your thumb, growing exactly as it should. The impossible step had a heartbeat. The proof of concept was real. Then, nature took it back. Late in 2023, catastrophic flooding hit the conservancy. The standing water unleashed a bacteria from the soil, a clostridial infection. And within days, both Kura, the pregnant surrogate, and Uwan, the bull who had been with her, were dead. The first rhino ever to carry a lab-made pregnancy never got to deliver it. The breakthrough and the loss arrived in the same season. A lesser team might have stopped there. Instead, they did the autopsy, confirmed the pregnancy had been genuine and on track, and treated Kura's death as proof the method works, rather than proof it fails. The surrogate approach was sound. The flooding was the enemy, not the science. Which brings us to the step everyone had been waiting for. With the southern white rhino pregnancy having proven the pipeline, the team finally began transferring the real thing, northern white rhino embryos, into southern white surrogates. They tried in July 2024. They tried again in December 2024. They tried once more in May 2025. As of the latest update, none of these has produced a lasting pregnancy yet, though after the December attempt, the surrogate's body did begin to respond, an early physical sign the team is reading as encouragement rather than defeat. This is the honest edge of the science. They have the embryos, they have the surrogates, they have a proven method. What they do not yet have is a northern white rhino calf on the ground. The man leading the program, the German wildlife veterinarian Thomas Hildebrandt, has said a northern white rhino birth could become reality within 2 to 3 years. A frozen embryo, a borrowed womb, and a dead male's genes, all converging on a single newborn that would be the first of its kind born this century. If you find this kind of story worth following, the slow grind of people refusing to let something disappear, subscribe to the channel. We follow these stories all the way to wherever they land, the wins and the heartbreaks both. So when that first calf is born, or if it never is, you will hear it here first. Because the stakes are bigger than 2 animals in a Kenyan field. If scientists can rebuild a large mammal from frozen cells and a cross-species surrogate, the same toolkit points straight at the rest of the extinction crisis. And the researchers tied to this work are already pushing towards something even stranger. They are trying to take ordinary preserved skin cells from northern white rhinos, the kind of tissue that is easy to collect and easy to store, and reprogram them in the laboratory into stem cells, and then coax those stem cells into becoming eggs and sperm. If that works, it would mean a species could be revived from a tiny sample in a freezer long after the last living animal is gone, and it would solve the deepest problem of all. In this case, which is that Fatu's eggs alone do not contain enough genetic variety to build a healthy, lasting population. That is the real reason the world is watching 2 rhinos in Kenya so closely. Najin and Fatu are not just the last survivors of their kind. They are the test case for whether extinction can be reversed at all, the proving ground for a technology that could one day be aimed at hundreds of other species sliding toward the same edge. Every embryo frozen at Ol Pejeta is also a rehearsal for a much bigger fight. And here is the question worth sitting with. If we can bring a species back from 2 animals and a tank of frozen cells, does extinction still mean forever, or does it just mean expensive? Think about what that does to the way we treat the natural world. For all of human history, gone has meant gone. The northern white rhino is the place where that rule is being tested in real time, in a fenced field in Kenya, by people who have already done something almost no one believed was possible. Some scientists will tell you this is the greatest second chance in conservation history, the first real evidence that we can pull a species back across the line. Others will tell you it is a costly distraction, that the money would save more animals if it went to stopping the poaching that created this disaster in the first place. Both of them might be right, and the 2 rhinos at the center of the argument just keep grazing, unaware that their species hangs on a needle, a freezer, and a borrowed womb. There is one more African gamble, even stranger than this one. Africa spent $19 billion on a wall of trees 5,000 miles long, and what actually grew was not the plan. That is the next video.